Featured in New York State Superintendent Magazine for curating art exhibit at the Arts East New York Gallery in 2018. She also choreographed my last video, That Be Me, and I was so honored and blessed to work with her. I want everybody to stand to your feet and welcome our moderator for this evening, Rashida Brown.
Good morning. So, I am going to talk about myself a little bit more, why I love hip hop so much. Actually, that's my favorite Biggie Smalls song, by the way. When I was younger, I wasn't allowed to listen to hip hop. My mother wasn't with it at all. And I convinced her by taking her to the Crush Groove movie. Anybody familiar with that movie? And after that, she was a hip hop fan. She even has her own top 5 now. My mother's like, oh, I'm from KRS-One, I'm from the Bronx. I'm like, Mom, calm down. But how I got turned on to hip hop was through Mr. Magic. I would listen to Mr. Magic at night because they wouldn't play hip hop during the day. So I would take my gray boom box and record it at night and then play it throughout the duration of the day. And I would hear MCs like MC Shinehead and Curtis Blow and Rakim, and that's how I got my hip hop. And I literally feel like, and you're gonna think this is corny, but it's true, that I was born at a perfect time because I got to experience hip hop from the beginning all the way to the end and see it change and experience it. And I've always been in the right place at the right time. When Down South was popping off in the 90s, I was down there and I was meeting people as well and networking. But enough about me. Let's talk about who's about to come out here. Okay, we have a hip-hop legend in the building. Yes, right, Roxanne Shante, and I was trying not to fan out because, I remember watching her and Rock McDaniels. DJ Rock McDaniels, I don't know if anybody's familiar with that show. It was like after school, like this obscure channel where you could get hip-hop, and that was the only place you could get it. So, I'm now going to bring to you, without further ado, the amazing Roxanne Shante.
Absolutely. So I guess what we're going to do is you're going to learn a little bit more about me. And I'm glad to do so. So I guess we're going to take a seat and get started. I was born and raised in Queensbridge Public Housing, which is located in Long Island City, Queens, New York. So I am from Queens. And pretty much I am the eldest daughter, and having siblings, being able to take care of them, and, hip hop came along.
So, I work in Long Island City right now. I'm an art teacher in Long Island City. So I feel like this is full circle.
Oh yes, absolutely, absolutely.
I was doing my research, and one of the things that I found interesting is that Queensbridge has a lot of rappers, right?
Yes.
So how many other rappers came out of Queensbridge?
Well, there's too many to really just sit here and try to detail each one, but I can talk about the most prominent ones, which would be myself, Roxanne Shante, the entire Juice Crew, Nas, Mobb Deep, Noy, Capone Noriega, absolutely, Gaddafi, so definitely there are a lot of great rappers, a lot of great talent, period, came out of Queensbridge. We used to say that it had something to do with the water, or maybe it was in the water, but I also say that poverty has a certain push that it gives us.
So, with that being said, because I love hip hop, you don't understand, when they ask me to do this, I don't got the right person. So, with that being said, I want to know your, from the outside looking in, when the West Coast and East Coast beef started to happen, a lot of the Queensbridge rappers got pulled into that. And I thought it was really interesting because initially it was like Tupac and Big. Next thing you know, it was Mobb Deep and Capone Noriega, The War Report, it was really weird. It got really strange. And I was just like, from the outside, I know it affected my day. So I was wondering, like, how did you feel about that?
Well, I think what it is that when you come from a large housing project, and Queensbridge happens to be the largest housing project in the world, you also come with a certain warrior spirit. So whenever there is any type of situation that takes place, whether it's in or out of hip hop, you know, they figure automatically to involve people from Queensbridge because we are truly defenders. We are warriors. We show up, you know, and sometimes they say we show up and we show out, but we come to win. So that's the reason why a lot of times Queensbridge rappers were pulled into battles that didn't even have anything to do with us. And they would be like, well, what about them? And they would just throw another name in there, knowing that we felt a certain honor with defending ourselves, with defending our neighborhood, with defending from where we were from. And so they would automatically say, okay, well, if you want some type of oomph or you want to put something else into this beef, if you add someone from Queensbridge, Queensbridge is going to come. Because when you come from a neighborhood where your immediate neighbors are I guess about maybe 30,000. There's 30,000 any given day, not on paper, and 15,000 on paper. So when most people say that they're going to go and get their neighborhoods or they're going to go and get their block, they're not getting the type of numbers that we do in Queensbridge.
Well, that makes sense.
As long as we don't lose this $50. And so that was the beginning. That was the beginning of my hip hop career. And then once I understood that it can also be a source of income for my household, I automatically knew this was something that I wanted to do.
Well, that's amazing. And it's great that you had your mom's support. Like,
yes, absolutely.
Because if I didn't have my mother's support, oh my goodness, I don't know who I would be. Like, literally, she pushed me like, you want to be an artist? Then you better do it 100%. So yeah, I understand exactly where that came from. So I have a question about Marley Marl. Like,
yes.
He's from Queensbridge as well?
Yes, he is.
So how did you meet him?
Well, I've known Marley my entire life, and Marley Marl is one of the greatest hip hop producers ever. Sometimes I feel like he does not get the credit that he deserves, you know, because we made all of these hit records and all of these great stars actually came from his living room. Well, his sister's living room, technically, but his living room. And so Marley Marl, I met him one morning, you know, just literally going to school, and he worked at a Sergio Valente jean factory. And Sergio Valente jeans was like the jean of all jeans back in the day. Whether it was your Western Sergios, whether it was your regular Sergios, whatever it was, you know, Sergio Valente jeans was your ultimate jean back then. So now he worked there and he made a promise to give me some jeans, and I was gonna make him stick to it.
Okay, yes. Well, you know what? I was watching a documentary on Marley Marl. They said he actually created a sound that nobody ever created before. Like he originated a sound for the actual turntable. So he does get his credit, but not enough. You know, but
absolutely.
Yeah. But I was watching a documentary. I was like, really? I had no clue. So how did you become a member of the Juice Crew?
I became a member of the Juice Crew because of Super Rock and Mr. Magic. His name was Sir Juice, and we were his crew. Meant those who traveled around him, those who went places with him, those who you would never see him without. So being considered his crew, that's where we got the name Juice Crew. But the Juice Crew originated with Sal Avitello from a club in the Bronx called The Fever. And being a Juice Crew member meant a lot because it held a lot of weight in the community back then. Like, in order to be a Juice Crew member, there were certain things that had to be done before you could even be given a ring. Like, there were funerals you had to pay for. Like, you had to help people pay their rent. You had to help people go to school. You paid certain tuitions. You were just a pillar in the community that helped. So those were the true Juice Crew members. I just officially became a Juice Crew member a year ago. I mean, because I was a Juice Crew all-star. That was just from the entertainment aspect of it. But being able to carry on the legacy of Sal Avitello and his father, being a member that someone can see me in the neighborhood and know I can go to her for help, or know that they can come to me for certain resources. You know, I take a lot of pride in being a Juice Crew member, so shout out to the Fever.
Well, let's stick to the Juice Crew. Like, you were the only female in there, right?
Yes.
How was that? How was it being the only female amongst, like, big men? Like, Big Daddy Kane was in the Juice Crew.
Yes,
like, how did that feel?
It felt great. I mean, one of the things about it is that those are my brothers. So it was actually just being able to say, this is the little sister who is like the big mama of the brothers, you know, because I'm a little sister in age and in size. And when we would go places, you know, there were certain times and situations that would make me revert back to being just a little girl. And then my brothers would step up and be my brothers. So I always felt safe and I felt comfortable around them. I felt encouraged. And, you know, they also provided that certain amount of natural sibling competition. So even though we weren't siblings, you do have those friends or you have those people around you where you are in a natural loving competition. And so it actually helps you be better at whatever it is you're doing. And for us, it was hip hop. So I think we kind of like iron sharpened iron off of each other. So I definitely felt great being introduced to a sister.
So Roxanne Shante Revenge was Marley Marl's first hit, right?
I mean, yeah, I guess you can say that. Like, I know people say to me all the time, like, you're entirely too humble about it, but he did have records before mine. None were like Roxanne's Revenge. Roxanne's Revenge was unlike any other record, and I think that stands for a lot of people. Whether it was the opportunity for others to be able to make records because I made Roxanne's Revenge, it allowed them to be able to respond to it and get into the industry how they wanted to, or maybe even listening to Roxanne's Revenge allowed people to say, you know what, that's something I can do, because you would always think that you had to be a professional in order to go into a recording studio, but here it is, this young girl, she made a cassette tape and it's on the radio now, you know, and speaking of Roxanne's Revenge, it actually just went platinum last year.
That is amazing.
Yes, hip hop is amazing, absolutely.
Okay, I'm just a low-key fan of Big Daddy Kane, so if you just tell me I'm not said hello.
I will.
I have 160 posters of him on my wall.
Okay.
I made a magnet, made my mom put it on the fridge.
I will.
All right. So anyway, the impact of that song.
Yes.
It never happened again. What happened? If you don't know about the song itself, it had like all these different rebuttals and like 8 or 9 different responses to your, not you at UTFO. UTFO was, let me digress. UTFO came out with a song called Roxanne.
Yes.
And I'm trying to speak the script, but I'm not. So
It's okay.
And you made the response to UTFO.
Yes, I made.
So how did that happen?
Well, Molly called me out the window, and when I say Molly, I'm talking about producer Molly Mall. Molly Mall happened to see me going to do my laundry one day, and he called me out the window and said, listen, I have this beat, can you do a freestyle on it? And I said, listen, I just have a few minutes. So I went to his house, and I did a freestyle, which took me all of about maybe 7 or 8 minutes, and that was Roxanne's Revenge. So we didn't have a topic at the time, so when he played Big B, which happened to be the other side of UTFO's hit, I said, okay, well then I'll just rhyme about this, and I started off with, well, my name is Roxanne, and from that point on, that's how Roxanne's Revenge came about, and to date, it has 108 response records. Woo! I've had over 78 records made about me specifically, where they say Roxanne Shante, and I don't think we'll ever have that phenomenon.
Woo! So you basically answered like my next 3 questions, but I'm gonna keep going. So they came out with a real Roxanne Shante. How did that come about? Because I remember as a kid, like getting confused.
Okay.
Yeah, like who's this girl? She came.
Well, what they did was they actually came out with another young lady, and they titled her The Real Roxanne, because they didn't have a rebuttal for Roxanne's Revenge. There was only one Roxanne Shante, and that's what made me different from the others, because I was the first one to stand up, and I'm still the only one standing. So sometimes you don't really have to get into, who does what or who does what. In the end, it always shows. But what I do want to say regarding that is that was my first time understanding a little bit about the politics in music and the politics also in hip hop, because they automatically said, because I wanted to know, like, why would you go out and pursue someone to say that they are the real Roxanne when I'm Roxanne Shante, the first one to do the response, able to do battles and things like that. They wanted to make it seem like the young lady that they were talking about on the record would not be someone like me. And when I say someone like me, meaning it wouldn't be someone who was brown skinned from the projects, didn't know her dad, was a runaway. Like, no, that would never be the Roxanne that we would pursue. That would never be the Roxanne that we would go after. Instead, they wanted to make her a lighter skinned girl with thinner hair. You know, I had this wild bushy hair, which I thank God I still have today, this wild bushy hair. And I had a very, I don't want to call it aggressive, but I had a very commanding and demanding MC voice when it came to being able to present myself. So they were like, no, we would never go after a girl like that. And that's when I understood that sometimes they go by the visual. And when you go by the visual, that's when, you know, there's a certain look when it comes to the talent. So my talent overrode the visual, and so that's why I'm still here.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely. And I find like a lot of black women in general always have to go above and beyond just to prove who they are in their workspace. Like you have to do more than everybody else just to get respect that other people just get off the rip. So it's interesting that you brought that up, saying that you didn't have a look that they thought was universal enough to carry that name.
Right.
So, well, of course you carried it. So I would like to go a little bit to the left. With the Juice Crew again, I know
Yes.
that there was beef with KRS-One.
Yes.
Boogie Down Productions, how did that happen?
Well, I was actually overseas when that occurred originally. I wasn't sure what took place. All I know is that when I returned from London, the limo driver at the time was like, I have something that you need to hear. And I was like, oh my goodness, he's getting ready to play a demo. Like, I'm tired. You know, at that time, any time that you were able to get any exposure or get someone to listen to your music, you would. So when the limousine driver picked me up and he pulled out this tape, like, you gotta hear this. And I was like, okay. So once he put it in, when he put it in, I started listening. And I'm a lyricist, so I listen to lyrics. So at first I'm listening and I'm like, okay, this sound. And then I was like, wait, what? Who, what? And I was like, play it again. And I remember my first response to that was calling up Big Daddy Kane, because I remember that KRS-One was Big Daddy Kane's friend. And I was like, your friend did this? And he was like, let me tell you in a minute, Sean. Because Kane has always had the Big Daddy voice from the beginning. So he was like, let me just tell you, just give me a second, Shani, I'm gonna explain it to you. I said, yeah, well, Ed, I'm gonna give me some sleep and then fix it. And that's how we came out with the whole battle circumstance. But apparently it took place because MC Shan, Mr. Magic and Marley Marl would not play KRS-One's record. And KRS-One initially came in peace and wanted to be part of the Juice Crew, wanted to be down. And then once he was turned away, that's how it started. But again, that's their story to tell, but that's how it came to me.
Well, I saw an interview and he said they snapped his album in half and said, this is trash. And I was like,
that sounds like it.
And I was like, whoa. But I remember as a kid listening to The Bridge Is Over and feeling like, oh, this is crazy. He was really going for Young Mac. Right. And I didn't even understand where it came from. But can you tell me how he even pinpointed Queensbridge in particular for that rap song?
Well, we're from Queensbridge. Right. So if you're going to do anything about the Juice Crew, you're definitely going to mention Queensbridge. And again, like I said, being from Queensbridge, one of the benefits is we have numbers. So when you have numbers, if you can have 30,000 people angry at you, you're going to have 30,000 people listening to your record. And if 30,000 people missed your record, they're going to call the radio station because they're going to want to hear it again. And this wasn't a time where you could just go back and, you know, play it, or this wasn't a time where everyone had access to these things in their home. So actually going and doing something with someone in Queensbridge would actually get your numbers up in hip hop. So to me, KRS-One made a smart move. It was just his intelligence at all.
So I want to shift gears a little bit to mental health.
Yes.
When I watched your movie and I watched a couple of documentaries about you, this me growing up with hip hop and knowing, you know, whatever they say out on the radio or what I catch from the streets, I found it interesting that you were really, really young. Like, I couldn't wrap my brain about me. Like, when I think of me at 15, I couldn't see me on the stage. Yeah, I was dancing on stage. I couldn't see me rapping on the stage in front of people. at the age of 15, but you had a kid as well.
Yes.
So how was that being 15 and being in the rap industry, being so young? How was that like, because most people don't fully mature until they're 27 psychologically, right? But here you are in an adult atmosphere. I mean, extremely adult atmosphere.
Yes.
And you're 15, so how was that?
Well, most people don't grow up in Queensbridge, and most people don't grow up in the projects, and most people don't have to take care of their siblings. So I guess Roxanne Shante at 15 wasn't like most people. So because of that, I learned a way to be able to handle everything. And one of those things is I always stayed my biggest fan. Like I always was my own hype person. I was always the person who looked in the mirror and told myself, I'm gonna make it, I'm gonna win, I'm gonna be good, I got this is not as hard, but I also accepted everything is temporary. So when people ask me, what is the magic to the mentality of Roxanne Shante? It was me understanding that everything is temporary and acting accordingly. Meaning, if everything is good for me and everything is great for me, I understand that this is temporary, so I'm still gonna be good to people. I'm still gonna be nice to people. Because this may not last long, this may not be around forever, and because of that, the person who holds the door for me, I'm gonna be as nice to them as I am to the CEO. The person who I cashed my check with, when I was going to check cashing places and didn't have a checking account, when I was going there, I'm gonna treat them the same way I would the president of the bank who now handles my accounts. One of the things about it is that I understood that everything was temporary, including pain. See, nothing lasts forever. See, some people get caught up in pain, get caught up in situations, and they think, oh my God, this is it. This is never gonna get better. But if you take the mentality that this is temporary, but you must take that mentality with both the good and the bad. You gotta look at it like days when you don't have money. Like, okay, well, you know what? Think about the days when you did have money. So now you bring some balance to this, so that this way you don't stress out and you don't lose it because of the fact that you don't have these things. So for me, the Roxanne Shante mentality was understanding that everything was temporary. Now, baby, I wish this weight gain was, because this seemed to be permanent. You know, but again, I be looking in the mirror every day like it's gonna go. It's temporary.
I wish I gained weight. I can't wait to take it off. So, I want to know, how did you juggle being a mom and a professional rapper?
My son happened to me, he happened to be one of the best hip-hop babies ever. And when they tell you that God won't put more on you than you can handle, that is the truth. But you gotta wanna handle it. So if you wanna handle it, you need to be able to say, okay, you know what? I have this child, I love this child. I know what it's like to be separated from your parent. I know what it's like, so because of this has to get easier. And for me, he was wonderful. It was not difficult. He was actually hip-hop's baby, meaning there are times where I would perform on stage and I would have someone hold him on the side of the stage. I would do my show, and the whole time I'm rhyming, I could look and see my son. And for me, that was because I had my own set of separation anxiety if he was not around me. I don't know if you saw the movie, but if you did see the movie, then you would understand how I felt about not having him within eyesight. Whenever I was somewhere. Absolutely. Because for me, it was like, okay, I need to have him here. And honestly, he has became that type of crutch for me my entire life. Like, I still work with him every day at the radio station. You know, there's moments where I look over and I see him and I say, okay, you know what, everything is gonna be great. You know, I look at my husband and my daughter also, but I also know that when it comes to certain things that have taken place with just hip hop in general, you know, there's a certain thing that I look for when I look that way and I see him. So for me, I think because I've always embraced it, and I've always embraced being very maternal from such a young age and having the responsibility of taking care of my siblings, that being a mom was rather easy for me, but I never wanted to promote it. I never wanted to make it seem like, oh, it's all about the cute baby clothes, and it's all about, I still wanted to tell people like, look, there's sleepless nights, there's this thing called teething, he's gonna catch these things called fevers, you gotta figure these things out. So when people don't see a lot of pictures of Roxanne Shante, especially during the early parts of my career, they'll say, well, why there aren't any pictures of you during this time? Now, it has made for great content because I'm a person that people always want to see. They want to see different things about me. They want to know. I think that had a lot to do with the success of the movie. But also, it was because I didn't do after parties. I did my job. It became a job for me so early that I did my job, and then I went back to the hotel room because I still had my little sisters and I had a child. So when everybody else could continue to party and go out and have fun and do all these things, I wasn't able to do that. So you didn't catch me on the pictures or maybe on the covers of the Right-On magazines and things like that, because I still had to make sure they got to school. I still had to make sure he was good, and I didn't have that opportunity to be able to say, I can stay up all night and sleep all day. I couldn't do that. So I needed to sleep when they slept. I need to be up when they're up in order for them to have that parental feeling from me.
Well, that's a testament to how strong you are mentally, because, right? Because to be that young and to still be a care provider and then still work and then, you know, still manage time management, oh my gosh, that's amazing. So, I don't know how many people are familiar with the movie or who've seen the movie, but what I discovered is that you went through something really traumatic at a young age with spousal abuse.
Yes.
How did you overcome that?
Well, I think what happens is when we're younger and there's certain things that are missing from your life, you look for them. Whether it is a young man who is missing their mother, whether it is a young woman who is missing their father, whether you don't have a family connection. So growing up, I never understood, because life is about comparisons. And that's the reason why the internet has such a control on so many people, because life is about comparisons. And you may not realize that, but even when you're younger, you start comparing as soon as you can. Meaning, literally, if one nephew starts walking, you'll notice that everybody will say, well, put the other one down on the floor. He'll start walking because he see him walking. So we don't realize that the comparison starts so early in life. So the good and the bad. When you don't have, growing up as a young woman, when you don't have other relationships to look at, to compare what is good and what is bad, and then you start to build what you think is what is successful and what is not. To me, growing up in the project, success was having a man in your home, period, was successful. Having a man who provides for the household, takes care of the kids, was incredible. So you find yourself getting in situations and circumstances where you're willing to accept certain things because you see what the outcome may be. So for me, I was 15 years old. He was 18 years my elder. So there was a lot of, looking for that father figure in my life. Now that I think about it, as I got older, I think it made me feel a certain way about those around me. Because I know today, I see somebody 15 and she's with somebody 18 years her elder. I don't care what record she's making. I need to know what's going on here, and I need to know where's his mentality that he has something in common with this 15-year-old. You see, but there was no one to do that for me. So as time went on, I started to see, because when you traveling is the best teacher. When you travel, you start to see other relationships. So I would see promoters and their wives, and he's 30-something, she's 30-something. This doesn't look like what I see when I go home. I would see older relationships where people would be like, oh my goodness, Roxanne, I want you to meet my grandmother and my grandfather. And I'm saying, wow, I've never had that to compare things to. So once I realized that, I had to express that when I had, returned home, and I was like, hey, this ain't right. Like this is not good. And so, one thing led to another, and it led to some physical confrontation. But I survived it, and I'm here, and I made sure that I told my story so that if there is another young lady out there, that she can understand or at least have this to compare to it. And I say, compare me as the success that can happen when you know better, you do better.
Amen.
So, I really like psychology. So PTSD is a real thing.
Yes, it is.
Post-traumatic stress disorder. So I realize when people go through traumatic things at a young age, as they develop, they treat people according to that situation, that trauma that happened to them at that age. Mm-hmm. Especially if they're too young to wrap their brain around how to heal. So how did that situation make you treat other men and other relationships afterwards?
Well, honestly, If I was to sit here and say that every relationship after that was perfect, that wouldn't be true. What I can say is that now I am married. I am in a great marriage. I understand what love and respect and responsibility is. And though it takes time to get to that point, it did allow me that time for growth. Now, when it comes to how do you treat people according to that, what you do is you look at everything with a watchful eye. That's what you do. You look at everything with a watchful eye. If you had one person steal from your pocketbook, then guess what? Next time you know to zip it up. If you have someone come to your house and they don't flush, you know to go knock on the door before they come out. Hey, don't forget to flush. There's certain things that you now put in place in your life to make sure that the other things don't happen. But you can never forget the signs. It's like driving. Life is like a highway. No matter how many times we know our way home, guess what? Subconsciously, you still look at those signs in order to get back home.
So I'm going to shift over to female empowerment and women empowerment.
Yes.
And you touched on it a little bit. But historically, how do you feel your impact influenced hip-hop?
I feel like everyone has contributed something to hip-hop. Every artist, every fan, everyone that has purchased a record, everyone that has booked a show or bought a ticket has contributed to hip-hop and where it is now. I feel that my part, though it may have been greater, is not more important than anyone else's. It is just my timing of what I did. There were female rappers before me. There will always be female rappers after me, but there will never be one like me that was able to do what I did at my time. And I think that's where a lot of people don't learn how to embrace true greatness. When you embrace your greatness, you understand where your great time is, and then you continue to do great things after that. Some people want to continue everything on. Like me, I'm the best Roxanne Shante ever. There will never be another one like me. The 80s, that's my era of music. To me, there will never be another one like it. The fashions, the things that we've influenced, the movies, the culture, all of that comes from that era. Now, many eras can say it came before. Most are going to want to claim it came after that, but everybody knows that that is that era. So for me, Roxanne Shante being part of such a groundbreaking hip-hop changing era is an honor. So still today, when I look and I see it, do I see the influence? I see the influence of the earrings. When anybody's wearing a ponytail that's too tight, I see the influence of the ponytail. I can look back at those things and say, oh yeah, that's Roxanne Shante-ish. But I also understand that I wasn't the inventor of the ponytail. I just may have taken it to the roller rink. I may have done these things with it. But overall, I can sit back and say, if she has a sassy mouth, if she is able to overcome things, if she's able to go into a room and say, okay, listen, without being super flashy, but still being the one that attracts people in the room, then I can say she has a little bit of Roxanne Shante in her. If she's had a bad contract, a bad marriage, been through a bad situation, but has raised her children and can sit back, I say, yeah, that's a little bit of Roxanne Shante in her. So yeah, when I sit back, I see that influence that I have had on others, but I humbly say that it belongs to everyone.
That was nice. How do you feel like you maintain your relevance in hip hop? Because, to retire at 25 and then whatever years later, you're still very relevant. Like, how did you maintain that?
Being good to people. Being good to people. The way you treat people when you're hot is the way they will treat you when you're not. And that's very important because a lot of artists, when they're hot and they get, forget them, they treat the fans bad, they just, not me. I try to take every picture. I try to sign every autograph. I made sure I showed up at every show. I've always put my best foot forward to try to make it. If I see somebody in the corner and they look like they're going through something, I'll stop what I'm doing. I'll go over there and be like, hey, you okay? Because I remember those moments when I needed somebody to walk over and ask me, was I okay? So I think the magic to Roxanne Shante's longevity is always being there for people and understanding the importance of being nice. Because see, being nice costs you nothing. But being mean to the wrong person can cost you everything. And I learned that very early in life.
Story time.
So wait a minute. But you told me that you rhyme also. Okay, because see, listen, fair exchange is no robbery. So if we're going to get up here, then that's what we're going to do.
Okay, so listen, I wrote this rap for a talent show.
Ready? Okay, I'm starting off. Here we go. So you're sitting here, right here with me, and this is the NAACP. We're going to have a lot of fun, can't you see? The ROXANNE. So now you tell me who you be, and this is a style that we're calling freestyle, make you smile, make you do it all the while. So come on now, I pass it to you, child. Let's do it.
All right, so boom.
And that's the way she took the room, and y'all heard her say, all right, boom.